I've made one of my transfers, but have I sold Trent or Salah? Welcome to the Gianni YouTube show. Hope you guys are well. This is my team selection video for game week 21. We're going to look at some of the main buys this game week and also talk about, of course, when we think some players might be returning. For example, is Salah coming back earlier than we might think, and is he a hold? We'll talk about that in more detail. Guys, likes and subscribes nice and early in the video would be really welcome. Do hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. So let's get started, shall we? I want to talk about some of the big names in FPL, right? We know Bowen is out for a month. He's probably going to be a sell. Trent for 3 weeks might only miss one game. So an update on Trent, it looks like 3 weeks. Now 3 weeks puts him back in the mix before the Chelsea game in game week 22. So Trent could only miss one FPL game. However, it's Chelsea in game week 22 on the 31st of January, and then only a few days later on the 4th of Feb, it's game week 23, a midweek round. So Trent could be back for game week 22. He could have to wait till game week 24 because 22 and 3 come so close together. So it's a risky one. Now, look, you might think Trent's been playing so well, just an easy hold and you wait for more information. Now, sure, that will suit many teams. However, many might see this as an opportunity, maybe me, to go, I'm going to need Haaland money. I'm going to need money to buy Haaland in game week 22. And the plan was always to get the money out of Son and Salah and put it upgrading one of your forwards to Haaland ahead of game week 22. That was always the plan. There is other cash cows in your team. Watkins might be one, Saka could be another. For me, Trent is another, right? And I've got this now opportunity where he misses the Bournemouth game. He could be back for Chelsea and Arsenal, but they're tough games anyway. And there's still, that's highly in doubt. And I can use his money to maybe move to a Haaland in game week 22. So maybe that's what I've done. And if I've done that, and we'll see my team in a second, then does that allow or give me another week to decide if I'm keeping Mo Salah? Mo Salah, we need to update on the AFCON, right? I've been looking at the AFCON odds and I'll show you in just a second. Now, Egypt are one of the favourites, but there's teams at shorter odds than them. And if Egypt go out in the quarterfinals, which I think there's a very good chance they do, then Mo Salah will be back for game week 24, which is against Burnley at home. Now, that would mean Salah only misses Bournemouth, Chelsea, Arsenal, 3 games. And if that's the case, is he worth a sell and then a buy back a few weeks later? Maybe, maybe not. Depends if you need the money. For my team, I'm not sure I'm necessarily going to need all the money if I am willing to sell someone like a Trent. And actually, because I've got a good 8th attacker in place, someone like a Solanke or a Palmer, I don't have a dead spot like a Mabama or an Archer, I could actually maybe look at benching Salah in those 3 games. And then I just don't have a benching headache and I always have a good front 7 still. So look, Mo Salah, quarterfinals is key. Who Egypt meet in the quarterfinals is really important. So when I look at the potential outcomes, let's say Egypt win their group, right? They win their group. The last 16 game will be fairly comfortable for them. Then they have the quarterfinals, the second knockout game. Who would they play? Well, they'll play Morocco if they win their group. If Egypt win their group, it's likely they would meet Morocco in the quarterfinals. Morocco are better than Egypt, in my opinion. Remember Morocco in the World Cup? We'll look at Morocco's odds in just a second. If Egypt finish runner-up in their group, which again could happen, again I think they'll have a fairly comfortable last 16 game, but then they get to the quarterfinals, who could they play? Well, they would play Nigeria or Ivory Coast, again, 2 really strong teams. So we're looking at Morocco, Ivory Coast or Nigeria as 3 potential opponents. For Egypt in the quarterfinals, it's a tough draw. And when we look at the bookies' odds to win the AFCON, Senegal were favourites, 6-1. Morocco, who Egypt could face in the quarterfinals, 11-2. Ivory Coast, again, another potential opponent, shorter odds than Egypt at 7-1. Algeria at 7-1. Egypt at 9-1. And then Nigeria, another potential quarterfinal opponent at 10-1. There is a good chance Salah is back for game week 24. And maybe I'm going to risk that. I can give myself a little bit more time by going keeping Salah in 21 and actually deciding before the 22 deadline at the end of the month once we've seen a bit of AFCON football. Maybe that is the smart play here, which is what I'm very tempted to do. So look, let's have a look at my decisions this week. But before we do that, we've got to see how I got on last week. We always start in this way. So I clocked 96 points. 64k. I'm very happy. I'm going to be very quick on this, guys, because we want to see what my actual team looks like. This seems like a lifetime ago away, doesn't it? I captained Foden. I benched Saka. I didn't captain Salah. who was obviously the popular choice. And I did start the likes of Darwin and Solanke, who could have produced more. But look, I was very, very happy with 96 points. Captain Foden paid off. He was in the early game, player of the match again. He's flying at the moment, isn't he? Those that went Salah had the pain of missed penalty, but then the joy of so many points. Fortunately, Saka only got 7 on my bench. Many benched Palmer's 18 though, didn't they? So I was happy there. Guys, if you like the look of this team, do show your support for the channel by liking and subscribing. Darwin with a 5, could have been more. Solanke had 9 shots, by the way, in his blank against Spurs. Very much a hold for me, Solanke. 9 shots is, he's going to get points very, very soon. He has had points. We know he has. So look, let's have a look at how I am set then for Game Week 21. Before we see it, I'm going to tell you guys my transfer. I've sold Trent, ladies and gents. A big call. For me and my team, it works. It won't work for everyone. I'm not saying Trent is more of a sell than Salah or Son this week for your team, but for my team, Trent absolutely makes sense because I'm in fear of not actually having 3 fit defenders playing. All right, so I've got Lascelles, who can't get in the team, Taylor, who's flagged, Trent, who's injured. So it left me with Gabriel and Pedro Porro. I needed to make a defensive transfer. That's one reason why I was willing to sell Trent. Another reason is I think Egypt could go out in the quarterfinals. I've just told you why. And again, if Egypt go out in the quarters, I think buying Salah back in 24... it's 2 transfers, and then there's a team value thing, which I'm not that fussed about, but team value comes into it. We'd be selling Salah for a higher price, and we'd be selling him for a lower price than probably we'd be buying him back. So you might lose a bit in team value. But then the big thing for me is I also have those 8 good attackers in my squad, right? I don't have that dead spot, so I can afford to bench a Salah, and if I'm doing that, maybe I can bench sell at Trent. And then there's number 4 reason why I've sold Trent is I really want a Stupinan. And this is why. Look at Brighton in the ticker. This is from Fantasy Football Scout. And check Scout out, guys. A link in my bio. I filtered up to Game Week 29. Top of the ticker, Brighton. Look at all these games, top of the ticker. I look at most of these games and go, Brighton can score 2 goals. Yes, Brighton don't keep clean sheets. They did in the league last time against West Ham. And they have kept some clean sheets in the Europa League. So the defensive data isn't actually as bad as you might think, because you'll always hear Brighton don't keep clean sheets. They might keep a couple. But what am I buying a Stupinan for? A bit like why we bought Pedro Porro. We don't expect clean sheets. If we get them, it's a bonus. But we're going to get some attacking returns. And Estupinan's numbers are insane. So I've picked out some of the best attacking defenders in the game, and I'm going to give you their per 90 stat for goal involvement, right? The combination of their expected goals, expected assists per 90. It's so important we do per 90 because the Stupinan's been out for so many games this season. We don't care about totals. We want to know when they're on the pitch, how do they compare to some of the other best attacking fullbacks. So Cash at 0.37, super high, but again, he's not nailed to start at Villa by any stretch. Probably Konza, for me, is still the first choice right back now. Trippier at 0.36, we know how good he's been. Estupinan 0.35, this is the company Estupinan keeps when he's on the pitch. Trent 0.35, and we know how Trent has been worth that price tag, right? Reece James hasn't been on the pitch much, but we know when he is, he's a huge threat, 0.34. And Pedro Porro in so many of our teams, 0.32. This is the company Estupinan is keeping. I've got this, by the way, on the Scout members area. You can just tick per 90 when you're sourcing expected data. Really useful thing to do. So there we go. That's why I want Estupinan. It's the combination of that attacking threat. It's the combination of the fixtures in play. And when I look at those games, I say Brighton can score 2+ goals in pretty much most of them. And Brighton will. Yes, they didn't score against West Ham away, but they did score 4 against Stoke. You look at some of the goals they've been scoring in the Europa League against some tough opposition. Brighton are a very attacking, dangerous team. And Estupinan at 4.9 million for me. You might be watching this and he might be at 5 million already. He's just been a great pickup. So yes, selling Trent isn't ideal, but it gives me enough money in the bank now, to do 2 potential moves. So look, let me show you how my team looks with Estupinan in, and then we'll talk through what my second transfer might look like. So I've got Areola in goal. That's an easy one over Dubravka. Gabriel against Crystal Palace at home. I'm hoping for a clean sheet there. Estupiñán, of course, comes in. Pedro Porro. And I've actually got Taylor in my 11 at the moment, right? Taylor is flagged, plays in the opening game against Luton. Midfield 3 of Saka, Palmer, Foden. Son and Salah are benched. And then up front, Watkins, Solanke and Darwin. We'll talk captaincy later, so don't worry too much about captaincy just yet. A 4-3-3 with one transfer and money in the bank. Do I make a second transfer here? Well, if we look at the bench, Lascelles isn't going to play and Salah and Son aren't playing. So I need Taylor to start. And there is a chance we hear more information because we'll get a good press conference. We won't get press conference for many games before the deadline this game week, but we will with Vincent Kompany and Burnley. So I'll be listening to that on Thursday. And we may even get a team leak. Who knows? So Taylor could start and I could roll the transfer. If I roll the transfer, it gives me more information, right? It gives me more information ahead of game week 22. I would still have 2 free transfers. I would be going Darwin out for Haaland. That's the plan. And I would be moving Son probably down to a 6.4 million asset or less. That's how much money I would have. If I sell Darwin to Haaland, I've got the exact funds to go Son to a 6.4 or less. Now, midfielders at 6.4 less, I've just spoken about how I really like Brighton. Pascal Gross, ladies and gents, is 6.4 million. That is a move I could make this game week as well. I could sell Son for Pascal Gross. Taylor then drops down to the bench. He may not play anyway. And then I've got Gross in my 11 in what would be a 3-4-3. It gives me 2 Brighton players. The reason I like Brighton players I've spoken about, but also I should mention, the way the Europa League works this season, there's the group of teams that finish top of their tables in the group stages don't play in the next qualifying round of the Champions League, which is in February. They don't start now back up Brighton because they won their group till the 7th of March. So all the way up until I think it's game week 28, for Brighton, there's no midweek fixtures. There's no European football. That's been the problem with Brighton this season. That's João Pedro owners will know very well. There's been huge rotation because João Pedro might start in the Europa but then be benched in the Premier League. And De Zerbi isn't scared to rotate his squad when the fixture congestion is high. Well, the fixture congestion isn't high now for Brighton. They're not in the Carabao Cup. They don't play Europa League till game week 28 onwards. And yeah, there'll be some FA Cup games. Fine. Estupiñán and Gross are both now at assets that I think will be 90-minute men in all these fixtures if they're fit. So I do like Gross. I don't know if I want to fully commit to double Brighton. That's the dilemma I've got. I also like some other midfielders that are more expensive than Pascal Gross. And I could, instead of selling Son to Gross, I could sell Salah to pretty much anyone and still have the money for Haaland. So I could go Salah to Jota, Salah to Odegaard, and then still go Darwin to Haaland. So again, that's an option for me. And I think I'm recording this before Liverpool play on Wednesday night. What I see on Wednesday night with Jota or Diaz might affect me. How do Liverpool look without Trent, right? They've got no Trent, no Endo, who's been brilliant in midfield, and no Salah. Does that mean I'm put off doubling up on that Liverpool attack with Darwin and Jota? Maybe. So I'm still undecided on my second transfer. I'll let you guys know what that second transfer is during my deadline stream on Friday. I'm going to be streaming on this channel. I've only done 2 deadline streams. This will be my 3rd. So make sure you tune into that and set a reminder for that video. I'll be going live just after 4 p.m. So it's going to be a nice long one. And I'll be deciding if I make that second transfer. Probably then. I may have made it before then, but I don't think so. I think it will be one that goes down to the wire. Do I go Pascal Gross? Do I look at a Jota or an Odegaard instead? Or do I simply roll? And a lot of this might come down to where is Taylor? Is he likely to start? But at the moment, I'm fairly happy. When I look at my team, I know I need to improve the squad now because there's going to be weeks where I have a benching or 2 and I go, I need a Lascelles to come off the bench and play. Oh, he's not going to play. So my 4th defender, Lascelles, needs an upgrade. When can I make that transfer? I'm not too sure because I need money to do it. And if I go Son to Gross and Darwin to Haaland in 22, I've got 0.0 in the bank, right? And I'm like, what 4 million defender can I buy for Lascelles? It's slim pickings, isn't it? So I would like to give myself a little bit more money, and selling Salah allows that. But again, I want the time to watch Egypt in AFCON and go, I don't think they're going to make it past the quarters. The big elephant in the room here is Darwin. Is Darwin and Haaland. It's Haaland. It's what I do with that Darwin spot, right? And for many of you, you'll be thinking, do I need Haaland? I can't see Haaland starting versus Newcastle. If he did, he ain't playing the whole game, but it'd be a surprise. I could see him maybe featuring against Newcastle. Regardless, there is a good chance for me, from what Pep has said, he starts at the end of the month versus Burnley. I think in game week 22, we're all going to feel the need to have Haaland back in our team. So you can address that issue in game week 22, or you can go into game week 22 with the funds to make a Haaland transfer easy in one move. And that's my plan. Like, I want to have the funds in place, which is why I've sold Trent. And many of you, that's why you'll be selling Son or Salah this week. It's to have some money in the bank so you can act on Haaland. If that's a player you want to buy, you might say, I'm going to go without Haaland. I'm going to buy Foden and just make do. Personally, when you look at captaincy for the next few weeks, if he's fit, you're going to be captain Haaland in 22. You might in 23. You're going to be probably in 24 again. Haaland's going to be straight back in my team as soon as he's fit. But that doesn't have to be the case for everyone. We should always play our own games, right? So that's where I'm at with my team. If you like what I'm doing, tell me in the comments. If you dislike what I'm doing, you can tell me in the comments. This won't be for everyone. Many will say, Gianni, you're crazy for selling Trent. He's just going to miss one game. I'm okay with that. I'm still fine with that. I think a Stupinan against Wolves, Luton, Crystal Palace gets more points than Trent, who doesn't play Bournemouth and then could play Chelsea, Arsenal. Oh, and it gives me and enables an extra £3.5 million to go and buy a Haaland, which is what I need, right? It makes complete sense for my team. As I mentioned, I've got those defensive injuries. So shall we talk a little bit about captaincy? I think we need to, don't we? I think we definitely need to, because we've got a big question this week. Because when Haaland's not in the game and when Salah and Son aren't in the game, it's like, who are we going to captain? Last week you saw, even when Salah's in the game, I'll look outside the box and I'll go for someone like a Foden. And Foden is one of the candidates I'm looking at this week. And that's because Newcastle have been so bad defensively. I just want to load this really cool chart from Fantasyopedia. Go check them out on Twitter. This is the last 6 game weeks, right? This shows us the expected goals conceded of every team in the last 6 Premier League games, as well as the expected goals. It allows us to see some matchups. So let's take Foden away to Newcastle. First, let's look at the Newcastle defence, right? Forget the width on this chart, just look at the height. And if you're listening on podcast, I'll explain it. Newcastle are the highest on this chart by a country mile. Expected goals conceded, Newcastle are around 20. Everyone else is below 12. How crazy is that? Newcastle have been the leakest defence by so far in the last 6 game weeks. And, by the way, they've had the likes of Schär and Botman fit for some of these games. You couple that with the expected goals total of a team, and we can see Man City, we're not looking at height now, we're just looking left to right. Well, actually, quite surprisingly, they've not had Haaland. Man City are actually middling for expected goals. Look at Liverpool, by far and away the best. Spurs second and Brighton third. Chelsea, Arsenal, that's the top 5. Aston Villa. And then you've got the middling teams of Everton, United, Bournemouth, Wolves, West Ham and Man City. That's the company they're keeping. So again, it's been a good attack, but not one of the best by any stretch in the last 6 game weeks. So that's the Man City-Newcastle matchup. Do we consider Foden or Alvarez if you got him for captaincy? Yeah, we do, purely because we know on any given day City can click. We also know Newcastle are vulnerable. We have to consider that it is at St James's Park, though. And when I'm captaining a player, especially one that's not named Salah, Haaland or Son, I probably want home advantage. So the other players you could look at is your Liverpool players, whether you own a Jota or a Darwin. But again, they're away to Bournemouth. And when we look at the matchups, Liverpool the best attack. Bournemouth for defence, actually very good. Best 5. Best 5 defences, XG conceded, Man City, Bournemouth, Villa, Arsenal, Liverpool. This is a very visual way of looking at it this week. But again, the matchup there isn't ideal because Bournemouth have been so good defensively and Liverpool are on the road. So do we consider our 2 good home assets? Our players at home this week, and by the way, Watkins is another one who's away from home. 2 players that play at home with good fixtures. One is red hot form, and that is Cole Palmer. He didn't play that well against Middlesbrough. He did play number 9 against Middlesbrough. That was an experiment that didn't work. I think Brozier comes into the team and we see Palmer again playing in off the right-hand side or at number 10 against Fulham. Now, Fulham have had a trip to Anfield on Wednesday night. Could they be tired? Can we spin the narrative? 1 day's less rest than Chelsea. Chelsea at home. Brozier back in the team. Palmer playing so well. Chelsea, a good attack we can see here. Fairly good. Like their fourth best attack in terms of expected data. And they play Fulham in terms of defending. Middling. I don't mind that at all. And Cole Palmer is definitely one I'm considering this game week. And the other big one I'll consider is Saka. Saka is in poor form, but Arsenal are having a training camp in Dubai at the moment. They're going to come back from Dubai refreshed, and I think Saka needed that break. And I wonder again if I'm spinning the narrative to suit my agenda, which is off the back of a break, actually, Saka's going to look a little bit recharged. And Arsenal, the expected data is good in attack. They're like 6th best attack. I forgot Newcastle because they're so high in this group. They are in the top 5 and Arsenal are 6th. And they play Crystal Palace, who again defensively, they've been okay. Middling. Expected goals conceded. They're actually they're second half. So they've been fairly loose at the back. I'm looking at this chart now and actually only West Ham, Burnley, Spurs and Newcastle have had weaker defences than Palace. So maybe that combination is the best. It's just, can you trust Arsenal? I think Saka is probably the most sensible, but I do like the punts of Foden. I do like the punts of Palmer. I do like the punts if you're going to buy a Jota this week. It's up in the air. Again, I'll be making my final decision on the deadline stream on Friday. I can't promise that my second transfer will be made on Friday. I may have made it before. I may not make it at all if Taylor's fit. I can promise I'll be deciding on captaincy. I am completely torn. I think the way I've just spoken about it to you guys, this helps this chart, but this chart shouldn't be the only thing you consider. Of course it shouldn't. But I do like looking at recent form. It's Foden for me, or it's Saka. I think they're the two. I think after watching Chelsea on Tuesday night against Middlesbrough, I've got trust issues. Never looks good. The players going over to the fans at the end of the game. Apologising. It's a bad time at the moment at Chelsea, and I just question Palmer, despite him being so good. He clocked over 1xG against Borough. Like, the numbers are there. So that's where I'm at, but I could change my mind there. Guys, if you've enjoyed this video, likes and subscribes would be so welcome. I know loads of you are signing up as channel members as well. You can do that and you can join the WhatsApp group if you're an Ultras member. Do check that out. And hello to all of my channel members, squad members, Ultras members. You'll have seen I've been doing some extra content this week. Extra videos just for members. So hopefully you're enjoying that content too. Guys, I will see you on the deadline stream. Have a good one. May the luck be with you, because this game is very big on luck. And it's unfortunate for many that they may have made an early transfer and been stung. Information is always king, but sometimes we do have to make early transfers because it works for our team and we've got the exact funds in place, and I'm completely for that. There's absolutely no judgment here. So guys, I'll see you very soon. Take care, and I'll see you Friday.